Welcome to the best of first-person episodes from Phantoms and Monsters. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads.
Stalked by a Skinwalker. I have read several of your articles about strange things here in New Mexico. I live in Gallup, New Mexico, which is surrounded by Native American culture and history. We have many nearby towns and reservations that have been here for a very long time, and many of the people claim they are haunted. My experience takes place right in Gallup on the east side of the city near a very small reservation. My best friend visited her sister every weekend. She lived in the low rental apartments on the east side. Right across from these apartments is an elementary school, the one I actually attended when I was a little girl. During those weekends I would spend the night with my friend at her sister's apartment. When there was absolutely nothing to do and the kids and parents were asleep, we'd go outside to the park located in the middle of the apartments and hang out. One night we became so bored we actually took off walking. I'd say it was about 2 a.m. We were used to being up late and were wide awake. We walked behind apartments where there is no light, tons of bushes and prairie dog holes in the ground. As we were walking, I sensed that someone was staring at us or following us. I am very sensitive, so when I sense someone is looking at me or following me, I'm usually right. I turned around to look and nothing was there. As I turned to look forward, my friend suddenly grabbed my arm and said in a scared whisper, "Oh my God, what was that?" I looked into the darkness and saw nothing. The wind was blowing lightly and there were a few trees ahead of us, so I passed it off as the wind moving the leaves. I told her, "It's just the wind, chill out," and kept walking. But as I looked again, I saw what looked like a black figure moving through the trees. I stopped and said, "I think it might be a drunk crashing out back there for the night." Just so I wouldn't scare my friend, I kept a calm voice, which was awful hard for me to do because I was sensing that this thing in the trees wasn't good. I said, "Do you want to go back home?" And she said, "No, we're almost to the store, let's just keep going." So as we kept walking we heard movement in the trees. We started walking faster. I heard something behind us and I looked, and it was like a wounded or hurt dog. I wasn't really scared because where I live there's a lot of that. But what I heard next stopped me dead in my tracks and paralyzed me. I heard this dog moan and growl at the same time as if it was ready to attack. I literally couldn't move and my friend was trying to distract me saying, "Come on. Come on. We gotta run." Her screams sounded distant as if I had gone deaf or if she was far away. I had made eye contact with this thing, and I knew that that was a bad move. I closed my eyes and said a short prayer, and, without even thinking, I turned around and ran for my life with my friend close by my side. I tried not to look behind us, but something was telling me to look. I glanced behind us and a man was running after us. He wasn't just running, he was running on all fours. I screamed and my friend joined in, only because I scared her when I yelled. We finally got to the road where there was light and cars passing. We must have run for about 5 minutes straight and were completely out of breath. I remember our sides were aching and cramping as we stopped to catch our breath. I turned to look behind us and saw the man in the distant darkness running back to where we had come from. We walked a few more minutes until we finally reached to the store. The lady behind the counter gave us a weird look and asked us, "Are you girls okay?" We replied out of breath, "Yes, just a late night run." I could tell she didn't believe us, so she asked, "Did you girls run from the apartments?" I answered, "Yeah, why?" And she said, "Oh. Are you girls sure you are okay?" We looked at each other and my friend told her, "Well, not really. We just had a horrible encounter with something. We don't know what it is or who it was." The lady said, "You girls just ran from a skinwalker. Whoever it was always chases someone he catches walking the road at night. You girls are lucky you made it this far." As if we weren't shaken up already, what she had just told us struck a nerve. I have heard similar tales from my grandmother. We didn't have any money, but she offered us a bottle of water and a ride back home. She closed down the store and we got into her pickup. As we passed the bushes and trees where we had previously come from, we both saw something running. The lady told us to ignore it and close our eyes. We finally entered the apartment complex and she asked us, "Which is yours?" I pointed in the direction of our apartment. As we were getting out of the pickup she told us, "You girls stay home at night now. There's no need for you two young girls to be running around at 2 in the morning. Keep yourselves safe, you hear?" We nodded and said goodbye and thank you. After that night we never left the apartment complex after it turned dark. To this day I am still shook up about what I had experienced that night, and I still don't really know what it was that chased us that night. MH.
Living near the Skinwalker Ranch, I lived near Roosevelt, Utah when I was a boy. My family owned land south of town. I suppose we lived about 3 or 4 miles from the current Skinwalker Ranch and Bottle Hollow. This was during the 1950s before the reservoir was built in the hollow. Sometimes we'd look east at night and see weird lights coming from the hollow area. One night I remember watching a ball of bright white light with a long tail moving along the eastern horizon, then reverse course and go back the other way. My father called it a spirit light and said he would see many in one night when he was a boy. The most shocking and memorable incident I experienced happened on my 12th birthday, which was in September 1959. Our family was sitting out behind the house enjoying the evening. We had a small party earlier, and the last guest had just left. I had received a refracting telescope as a gift from my parents, and I was eager to try it out. The sky was clear and full of stars that evening. As I scoured the sky, I heard what sounded like men talking. The sound was coming from the gully on the east end of our land. As I listened, I noticed my father walking towards me. He had a very fearful look on his face, like he had seen a ghost or something. All of a sudden there was a loud whoop sound and then another. I looked back toward the gully and was shocked to see 3 tall white human-like figures. The only description I can give is that they were very thin with long arms and legs. Their heads were human but looked more animal-like as we watched. They were standing still and looking directly at my father and I with shining black eyes. Then the one on the right raised its left arm and pointed in the direction of the hollow, the area near the current Skinwalker Ranch. My father yelled out, "Leave us be," and the figures crouched to the ground and disappeared. When we got in the house, my father and mother sat me down at the kitchen table and told me that these were spirits of dead Ute warriors who were killed by the Spanish and buried in the hollow. They also said that these spirits protected the sacred native lands and used magic from the heavens to scare their enemies. My parents were very aware of these traditions even though they were not Native American. As I grew older, I started to realize that we know very little about the spiritual world and that we know less about the people who lived before us. John R.
Is a skinwalker stalking me? A few months ago I started dating a Navajo girl. There has been some trouble with an ex-boyfriend of hers. Strange things have started to happen around my property. I live on a ranch in southern New Mexico and it's very isolated. Lately I've started seeing shadows and shapes moving around outside at night. Coyotes, which have never been much of a problem, have started coming into the yard. I even think I saw one in the house one night, but I can't be too sure. One morning I found a feather laying in front of my door. I quickly called my girlfriend. She told me not to touch it, but wouldn't say why. Can anyone give me any information as to what is going on here exactly? I can't explain it, but this is starting to seem like something out of the ordinary. Could there be a skinwalker stalking me? Skinwalker encounter. I live close to the reservation just outside Mesa, Arizona. I have a couple of native friends who I just recently went camping with around 20 miles outside the valley to a place they call Three Poles. This place is considered holy land in their eyes and is close to a river. There are numerous stories I know about this place, such as the flute player you can hear at night or the boulder-sized splashes you hear in the river. But the most notable are the stories of the skinwalkers. We arrived at the camping site around 9 p.m. It was already dark, so we started to unpack and made a fire. Once that was done, my native buddies put up the barriers and puffed the smoke of tobacco upon us as a personal barrier. They told me never to go anywhere alone, and that around 3 a.m. is when the spirits are the most active. Around 2 a.m. the beating of a drum became very clear. This is a sign of the skinwalker, they told me. At around 3 a.m., the smell of wet dog became apparent. This is the sign of either two things: Hoofy, an extremely evil spirit, or the skinwalkers. The fire grew small, and we could see the shadows of animals. We all decided to move to another site in the morning. As first light dawned, we packed. I sat in the back of his truck to hold down the stuff. As we left, I saw a Rottweiler walking on its hind legs straight to the middle of our camp. It was easily 5 feet tall and had bright orange eyes. I freaked out and screamed as it was running at us, still standing up. It disappeared into a bush after we turned the corner. Later on at our other camp, an old man with his face covered up by hair visited us and acted very strangely. We ran out of drinks, so a friend and I decided to head out on foot. No car, a friend had to take it home. We saw a car. As it approached, it slowed down to a halt, and the same man asked if we wanted a ride. We said no because by this time my friends had told me the man was a skinwalker. He grabbed my arm and pulled me by his car and looked straight at me. As my friend ran up to grab me, the man took off in his car. Once we got back, I relaxed. It was around dawn when just behind me the man appeared about 10 feet away and asked if I could help him with something back at his camp. As he did, 2 trucks came around the corner to head further into the grounds. He watched them as they passed, and then all of a sudden he bolted after them. I was astonished seeing the 60-year-old man chasing down a car. My native friends put up a salt barrier. I heard sounds all night, but never saw anything after that. Levi D.
Skinwalker tradition and encounters. As a teenager, I would visit my grandma at her home on the Navajo reservation for several weeks every summer. I loved to spend time with her, eat her delicious fried bread and hear her tell us stories. Every so often my grandma would hire a worker, the harmless town drunk, to do odd jobs around her house and property. One evening right before the sun went down, I was asked by my grandma to take him home, which was about 4 miles out of the valley where she lived. I was more than happy to, seeing that I was only 14 years old and was asked to drive a truck. Mind you that on the res, nobody cares that you're only 14 years old and driving around. Hell, there's hardly anybody around to see you anyway. So my 9-year-old brother jumped in the truck cab with me while this worker and my dog shared the tailgate of the truck, and we were off. After I dropped the worker off at the shack that he and his brothers called a house, we headed back down the road to Grandma's. As I mentioned before, it was evening, and the sky was a deep red as the sun began to set behind us. We were leaving a nice dust trail from the dirt road, and the radio was playing music from the only radio station that could be picked up from the nearest town of Holbrook, Arizona. There was nothing unusual, nothing weird. It was at this time that my eye caught movement of something in the bushes a little up the road to the right of us. I remember slowing down thinking that it was one of the many free-roaming sheep in the area that would dart out in front of the truck. As I passed where I thought I saw it, I sped up thinking nothing else of it. Then out of nowhere I just felt this dark feeling of fear and dread. I had no idea why I was feeling this way, but I definitely felt that something was wrong. As I play this memory back in my mind, there are only a few clear memories that I have of that evening. I clearly remember looking in my rearview mirror and seeing the dark silhouette of something very tall and very skinny, that seemed to be covered with some kind of hair or fur running behind the truck after us. Whatever it wasn't a normal human or human at all. I remember hearing my brother crying and my dog barking ferociously at whatever was chasing us. I remember speeding very fast and shaking violently as the truck bounced on the washboard dirt road. I distinctly remember that this thing was only getting closer as my brother cried, "It's coming up on your side." I remember being as scared as hell and thinking that I didn't want to die. At the moment that I thought would be our last. I remember speeding around a bend in the road and seeing a car coming towards us in the opposite direction. At that moment I felt instant relief and felt that whatever was following us was gone. Shaken up but alive, we made it to Grandma's house wondering what the hell had just happened. We ran inside not looking back, hoping that whatever was chasing us had not followed us home. As we told my grandma about our experience, she didn't seem too surprised, which surprised us. She continued by repeating stories that we had already heard at one point or another about black magic, witches, and something that the Navajos call Yinidlushi or skinwalkers. Needless to say, I didn't even want to look out any of the windows of all the rest of that night. As a matter of fact, I never drove on the reservation at night until I was 21 years old. Without going too deep into explanation, I'll just say that these skinwalkers are evil men and spirits that use black magic for evil doing. I tell you that as far-fetched as it may sound, they are real. I believe that if God and his greatness are real, the devil is equally as real, and also has his ways of showing himself. This may not sound very scary to some readers, and that may be due to my lack of writing skills. But what happened that evening really did happen and scared the living crap out of me. I invite anybody to visit this part of Arizona if you have any doubt or want huge scare. I promise you that you won't be disappointed. I hope that you enjoyed my story and I look forward to sharing other experiences soon. Tracker 337.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.